We're going to talk about Elrond, not the elf. We're going to talk about the asset, the coin. Why is it pumping? Let's find out. So welcome. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, hit the bell button, like and comment. So I did a video a few weeks back, you probably remember. I'll put the little thumbnail on the screen there. It did very, very well on the day of publication. It pulled back about 18% of the price. 2 or 3 days later, woof, it fucked off to the moon. Literally, right? Sorry. I wanted to do this video earlier. This is a basic video in what Elrond is. I just didn't want to FOMO people in. The reason why I'm doing it now is because I'm going to suggest this to you. Don't buy. Just wait. If you like it, just wait, because there's something happening tomorrow that will probably dump the price, essentially. Buy the rumor, sell the news. It's annoying because, let me just put it out there, I wanted to do a video of what it was first, but I just didn't have the time to do a bit more research, and I wanted to find out a few more things before actually physically doing it. But it was getting a lot of hype, and I thought, well, let's just do a when to invest. MAINNET at the time was about 40-50 days away. And the funniest side of it was the market wasn't really pumping at the time. It was getting a bit of interest, but then the market really, really rallied. And a lot of people have been asking for this video. So I did this video a while back. And yeah, apologies if you missed that pump. It literally was the start of the pump. It's absolutely crazy. So we're going to talk about it. Pumpamentals, fundamentals, all kinds of stuff. We'll just go over the website essentially in terms of what to look for and what is good and what is bad, and also going to compare it to another project that I like, and I feel that they're both, in my opinion, going to do very, very well, because I think that this sort of use case is required, massively, hugely required, and I think it is under people's noses because everyone's looking for the flash stuff. I'm looking for the actual usability. Okay, so in terms of this, Elrond, circulating supply and total supply, not too bad. Very, very similar to the coin I'm going to compare it to in a second. Volume is obviously quite good. It's had a monumental rise. Currently, roughly 234 Satoshis. I still think that this is undervalued in my honest opinion when you compare where my said other alternative coin has been. So in terms of describing it in a real simple word, it is a blockchain that is designed to have high amounts of transactions. Simple as that. It's going to be using the likes of proof of stake, sharding, all kinds of adaptable, top word, structure to allow it to just breathe, grow. Think of it like a balloon, right? The more it expands, the more room it will go, right? Simple as that. The same with anything in the world of crypto. You've probably already noticed when things expand in the world of Bitcoin and Ethereum, it gets very, very pricey, it gets very, very expensive, very, very quickly. Elrond aims to solve that problem. That is why I think this is a use case of a blockchain for people to adopt and use is good. It's a very, very solid architecture to use, in my opinion, moving forward. Elrond can reportedly process up to 10,000 transactions per second with 5-second latency with pretty decent costs. So that itself as a use case, you should tick that off, in my opinion. As fundamentals, tick it off. Why? Because we need blockchains that can do bits quickly and do not crash. Right, so let's talk about my alternative. My alternative is obviously Zilliqa, right? You'd probably worked that out anyways. Now, let's talk about it. They're very, very similar. Very, very similar. Circulating supply, very, very similar. Total supply, this has got a maximum supply. The difference is this cannot print anything higher than 21 million. It's set in the code. Elrond, however, could. The word is could there. So that is already set in the code. That is obviously good. Now, Zilliqa has longevity. A bit more price action, essentially. Zilliqa essentially is the first blockchain to do sharding, technically. Now, their mainnet came out in January 2019, this period here, where it pumped up to roughly about 600 Satoshis, right? Currently, Elrond has got its mainnet coming out tomorrow, and it's currently at 234 Satoshis. So, fundamental-wise, not as much, but the altcoin demand is different. This also got a lot of hype as it came out. This came out in the bear market. Literally, it came out in literally January 2018, and it pumped up to levels of 19 cents, give or take, up to I think a bit higher. Let's have a little look. Bear with me. 23 cents was its all-time high, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. And you think, why do I think that Elrond and this will do very well? You got to look at the past. That pumped on speculation with no product back then. What is it going to do? The same with Elrond, same with all these kind of coins that have got good blockchain infrastructure that are designed for speed and to actually use things cheap, transactions, all kinds of stuff like that. Where can they go? With a lot of demand, with a lot of users. That's the question. Utility is key. So Zilliqa obviously is a good alternative. Very, very similar. Works in the same way. That is going to be like a balloon. And it says here up to 100 times the speed of Ethereum. Network, sharding, using the nodes. And we're going to go over both of them in a kind of a way to kind of give you an insight. Personally, I would back both of them if I could. I'm not going to back Elrond at this time. If Elrond, though, drops down to low levels, I will definitely pick a little bit up as well. Because I do feel that, personally, I think the way the market's going, the way demand is going to shape up into the future, we need solid platforms that can handle people, data, transactions, simple nibbly-nubbly bits, right? That is on all kinds of stuff. We don't know what sort of companies are going to adopt into blockchains. And if we've got solutions where they can just run and roll and crack on, happy days, people will choose these over the likes of Ethereum, over the likes of Tron, as examples, just to give you an insight. So let's look at Elrond. First things first, you can stake it. The mainnet is coming out tomorrow, and ultimately it is a much more fresher version of Zilliqa, essentially, in terms of website, branding, all kinds of stuff. But I do feel that, you know, the edge of time matters in cryptocurrency. The ability to have more partnerships, the ability to have more platforms on an industry level is obviously going to be very, very key for how Elrond is going to improve as an asset. Over time, mainnet, cool, happy days. It needs businesses now to be on it. Simple as that. For it to grow, to get bigger. Look at Ethereum. Everyone went to Ethereum because it was the only real option back then in 2016 and 2017 moving forward. The ICOs then built on Ethereum. That's why Ethereum's quite big and quite prestigious now. Whereas the likes of these blockchains is decentralized applications, the ability to kind of grow and be a balloon is kind of key. So it is, you know, we've already spoke about the scalability. It's secure. Obviously, proof of stake is obviously what Zilliqa runs on as well. Elrond, it is by far the most longer term structural sound security mechanism. It also has fair case of cost benefits as well. It is cheaper, and obviously it needs to be developer friendly, right? But the one thing about this is obviously it's got, you know, the element of staking. Happy days. You know, staking on Zilliqa isn't quite out there fully yet. It's on a few little platforms, but it's not on their private wallets yet. But this will always come into effect in the future. It is a very, very good option for holders, and it's one of the reasons why prices tend to stay stable on staking coins and tend to grow progressively over time. But what I will say about this is it does have some solid partners. It's already getting there, but they're not the biggest in the world, right? Obviously, it looks quite good, but these, obviously, Holochain's quite well known, Chainlink's obviously well known, but some of them, they're not, you know what I mean? They're not prestigious yet, but that takes time, obviously. Businesses, growth, it takes time. One thing I will say about Elrond is it is obviously pumping due to news right now. That's why I'm saying don't buy yet, be cautious. And obviously, if the market does take a tumble and the dominance does increase and carry on increasing, in BTC, you're going to start seeing these bleed out. And what does come down, does come down quite hard. So just be careful behind that. Ultimately, you obviously got big links to Binance. Binance is obviously a huge player in what it obviously has been doing. But overall, in my opinion, I think anything that solves problems that Ethereum has had, Bitcoin has had, is definitely a good place to be, especially if they can get the execution right of bringing businesses into their platform. Simple as that. Where all these businesses out there, you got to think of how many businesses are not in the blockchain space right now. There's tons, right? they're all going to be, you're going to be fighting for those, those signatures essentially. So in terms of this, obviously we spoke about the sharding, the way that it will continuously just add on the nodes and grow, right? Simple as that. So one day, not much demand, the transactions per second will be quite slow, but well, not slow, but low, essentially. As it obviously grows, demand grows, that will allow it to just breathe and just happily grow. Obviously, we've spoken about proof of stake. It's obviously key. But the fundamental lines of all this is obviously the nodes and the staking and the sharding elements that just allow it to just carry on growing. And I think that is often overlooked. And when you look at likes of comparing it to Ethereum, obviously Ethereum currently is on proof of work. It's currently changing over to proof of stake. Obviously that's massively key. But the biggest fundamental flaw of Ethereum, we all know it, is 2017 when it was very, very expensive to buy and sell Ethereum and also very, very slow. Same with Bitcoin and the same with other networks at the time because all the networks were on ERC20. Just didn't have a use case. Whereas now we've got these separate entities to allow the industry to breathe, to grow and to get demand fulfilled. Simple as that. So roadmap, what have we got coming up? We've got a lot coming up actually. So if I look at this, so we're in and around this region into this region. So all we've done right now, we've done all this. Obviously the dApp store, the digital identity and the name service. Then you got the DeFi incentives, privacy research and blockchain interoperability. So the announcements and the fulfilling of getting the blockchain used by others and all kinds of stuff like that, which is obviously massively key. In terms of the team, it's not the biggest team in the world, but ultimately there's a few of them that have had some very, very big tech startups and they've been very, very successful in their own, their own entities, their own niches. But just be careful when you do any sort of research with any sort of cryptocurrency coin. Make sure you dive deep into any of the team members. You will see some team members that in some coins that have they've been around a long time and ultimately they've been working for some very, very, very big companies. But again, this video is not going to go through that. Ultimately though, make sure you look at the advisors. Advisors is always a good snapshot at seeing what they've attracted and what they've brought to the team. Obviously we can see here some very big economic sort of advisors, obviously very, very key. But most importantly, you've got to look for the tech startups. Obviously this guy here, business advisor, the fundamentals of any sort of team is the core of who is in charge. Simple as that. So make sure you look at that. Obviously, technical advisor, you got obviously one of the core Ethereum developers, which is also key. Technically, they're all on the same sheet essentially. So moving forward with this, what I will suggest as well, the documentation of Elrond is pretty massive. I've looked at this; it is huge. If you do not fully understand, and this is one thing as well I get, when people do research and we start talking about projects and looking at things, the amount of information on their website now to explain to a user or a person that what it is, read it. And that's why I'm trying to get you guys to do it. Do your own research, read it. What I do is only a very, very brief snapshot of my opinion, realistically, of what is already here. But ultimately, as a content creator, I cannot just do a full research piece because it's absolutely fucking boring for once. It looks terrible. And, ultimately, people want to see what my opinion is on certain things, but your opinion should be automatically mind-shotted on the future of what's on the website essentially, and the future should be what it's telling you what they're going to do, what they are planning to do, and then you got to back that horse at the right levels. So they've got a ton of stuff, an absolute ton of stuff. Their GitHub is very, very active as well, very, very active. Even 16 minutes ago, off we go. But as I say, you got Elrond, you got Ethereum, you got obviously the likes of Tron, you got Zilliqa. Zilliqa for me is the horse that I'm backing. Personally, as it stands, I got in at a very, very low rate with Zilliqa, that's why. But ultimately, I still think when you think of how many cryptocurrency industry leaders there's going to be, I think blockchain, enterprise blockchain, I think the amount of companies out there that need something like this, like Zilliqa, like Elrond, like Elrond, to take the mantle of big companies and put them on a blockchain. Simple as that. Because I think that's where the world is going anyways, we know that. But even for like trading and being able to move stuff around, have a liquidity pool, I think the ability to do it faster than what we've already got is obviously very, very key. And we don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. We don't know how many people are going to come into the industry, how these will perform price-wise. But as long as they've got a solid utility, and long as they actually have a use case, it makes such a big difference, in my opinion. So for me, Elrond is definitely an option for anyone, in my opinion. It's got all the bells and whistles. It has all the information that you need. Obviously, looking at this right now, this is obviously their Explorer, which is pretty neat, by the way. It's also zooming in on the Atlantic Ocean, which is not ideal. But I think I broke it. Oops. But for me, like, moving forward, if you're an investor and you don't understand the gravity of where things have failed in the past and where the solutions are, you're looking at one here. You're looking at one definitely here. But for me, you've got to read everything. You've got to read and understand it and look at it. I cannot do it on a video because, one, you'll be fucking bored. But you can see here how far back it goes in terms of where they did the sale raise and where the company reserves are. For me, obviously 19% obviously will go, obviously the team. You've got to look at these as well, how these will obviously get dumped over time. But you've got to look at where things will go, where things will physically go in the future, and how scarce is it? How scarce are the tokens? What will the team do with them? All kinds of stuff like that. So there you go. That's today's video, pretty much nailed off. A brief outline of Elrond and what it is and why it's kind of important to the ecosystem of cryptocurrency. It will be a growing industry, in my opinion, obviously. I think we are very, very fortunate to be in a position where we are. But we do need companies like Elrond, Zilliqa, Algorand, Ethereum, etc. to allow the demand growth of the industry to continue, to allow big industries to jump onto any sort of industry blockchain, essentially, to carry on the growth of the decentralized application, to run on a blockchain. Look at Zilliqa with unstoppable domains, for example. Look at the likes of, obviously, what's on the Ethereum network. Stellar Lumen, for example, has got IBM. All kinds of good stuff. So you just got to be very, very careful what you back, and ultimately the right prices. But for me, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, don't buy at these levels with Elrond. Simple as that. It's too risky. The risk and reward. You got to think long term, but you also got to think short term as well. Just be careful.